Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, so it's a pleasure to have you join us today. Wanted to welcome you to our panel on leveraging technology to promote disruptive tourism concepts. I am Rogerio Basso, the head of tourism for IDB Invest, the private sector arm of the Inter-American Development Bank Group. Before we get started, I wanted to highlight some housekeeping items. Please note that all microphones and cameras are going to remain off during the session. We will conduct our webinar in a talk show format, but we're going to set aside some time at the end of the panel for the audience to ask certain questions. So feel free to submit those queries using the Zoom chat feature. We'll be monitoring those questions and then we'll reserve some time at the end. So let's go ahead, let's get started. This panel builds upon an in-person event that we're sponsoring in South Florida to strengthen the connections between Miami, the private sector, and Latin American Caribbean countries. Miami-LAC 21, as the event is called, serves to promote Vision 2025, which is IDB's roadmap to sustainable recovery that includes the important role that the private sector has in helping the economic recovery. We all know the importance that tourism has across nations in Caribbean and Latin America, and we also know how affected we have been because of COVID-19. So I'm not going to be spending much time detailing figures or statistics. Now, in contrast, what I like to do is focus on the silver linings of the pandemic. We know that this has taken a personal human toll on a lot of people, and that's most unfortunate. But even with that backdrop, there are success stories of companies that, despite the adversity, despite these challenging times, they have been able to resurface. We have put together a phenomenal panel with 3 leading CEOs of companies that are in different stages in their development cycle, from startup all the way to expanding global businesses. With us, we have Rafael Museri, Rafi. Rafi is the CEO and co-founder of Panama-based Selina. We also have Andres Sarrazola, who is the CEO of Colombia-based Ayenda, and Cristián Roberts, who is the CEO of Costa Rica-based Into, an expeditions company. Now, to start, I'd like each of you to briefly talk a little bit about your company and what makes you unique. Rafi, please lead the way.
Thank you, Rogerio. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for hosting us. So a few words about Selina. Selina born 6 years ago in Latin America. And today we're operating in 20 countries across Europe, US, all over Latin America. And we just built teams in Southeast Asia and Middle East, growing in 22 towards more countries. Selina, it's a lifestyle hospitality platform that basically build in order to cater the needs for millennials and Generation Z. We conducted a long market research that proved the white space, as we call, between supply and demand. There is a big mismatch between supply and demand, while about 43% of the consumption in hospitality happen by millennials and Generation Z, while just 3 to 5% of the actual supply speak their language. As a result of that, there is a need. Selina built a business model that convert quickly in 90 days, a not relevant box to relevant box, tripling the revenue. And it's all built by locals for locals, and the rest happen organically and naturally. Tourists, they're not interested feeling tourists anymore. So as local, as authentic, as humble and honest you are about the product, as more international tourists and international remote workers and digital nomads going to visit your site. This is who we are. Sorry, it was a bit long, but I hope it was helpful.
No, that's fantastic. And we're going to touch upon these evolving consumer trends on a post-COVID era. So thanks for that intro. Andres, please go ahead.
Rogerio, thank you very much for the invitation and all the IDB team. So I'm Andres, I'm the CEO and founder of Ayenda. So we are a hotel chain. So what we do is we transform independent hotels into branded hotels. So we take hotels with, let's say, 10 or 20% occupancy, and then we boost the occupancy of each one of these independent hotels by being branded. So what we do is we transform not just the brand of the hotels, so the cushions or the toilet kit of the hotels, but we transform everything starting from the technology. So we give each one of our hotels, we give them property management software, revenue management system, and we have a big power of distribution because we have thousands of hundreds of guests that want to book with us. So our main focus is the domestic travel. So we're now operating in Colombia, Peru, and Mexico. But Colombia, for example, they run some Colombian. So let's say, like most of the guests that we have in the hotels in Colombia are like 90 or 95% domestic travelers. It's a type of traveler that have to travel from one point to another. So we're not catering the international traveler, we're catering the kind of guests that have a mandate to travel from one point to another. Right now, we have about 250 hotels. That's about 7,000 rooms that we are having right now, completely branded. So in short, we partner with independent hotels to serve these thousands of guests in Colombia.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andres. Cristián, last but not least.
Thank you for the invite, Rogerio. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and especially to share this panel with Andres and Rafi. Into is a little bit different from a concept and structural perspective. We consider ourselves a conservation finance company, and we do that through hospitality and ecotourism. So Into basically was born a little bit pre-COVID with the intention to really maximize our impact and the way that we travel, but also how we can have regenerative experiences while we do that. So we aim to create a platform that enables that. And we believe that technology is definitely a catalyst of change and a facilitator to do that. And we've based our business model a little bit around that. So we're a little bit of an atypical structure, but yeah, that's who we are. We're launching from Costa Rica and growing quickly to the rest of the region.
Wonderful. So with that backdrop, Rafi, we've known each other for a while. Selina is a longstanding partner of IDB Invest, and we were always impressed, especially during COVID, at how quickly you moved to protect, guests, employees, and the community at large with the pandemic. I have a two-part question for you. First, if you can comment a little bit on how you leveraged technology to achieve this. A lot of discussion around touchless features and contact tracing and so on. But most importantly, how are you adapting your concept right now to respond to the sensitivities generated by the pandemic? What is it that you're having to do at the property level to be ready for business?
So there is few things related to that. So first of all, in terms of the concept in the post-pandemic, what we learned in the pandemic, I think that we born from 2014-15 market research that basically showed that millennials and Gen Z have special needs. Those needs are all about prioritizing experience over materialism, number one. Number two, 600 million out of 2.4 billion millennials around the world, they're lonely. They need social experience. That's 23%. That means that pre-the pandemic, if you build a place that increases the chance of people socializing, they're going to revisit you and they're going to come again and again. That's the concept pre-pandemic. Selina built places that people can socialize. All those special needs pre-pandemic become even stronger and more relevant post-pandemic. People even more appreciate experience over materialism. People realize how important. People more appreciate social experience. People more appreciate remote work. So people understand that they can do things from everywhere, and there is no need to be in a specific office. There is hundreds of millions of new remote workers around the world. So how we leverage technology. So for us to be able to scale quicker into a new market in LATAM, Europe, and the rest of the world, we build technologies through the pandemic as distressed asset finders that will allow us to find even quicker and faster distressed hotels off market, that will allow us to close below market value and open new location where our other technology tell us that there is demand for that specific product. Number two, we build what's called a destination index. It's a kind of a BI tool that allows Selina today to learn in real time through 40 different parameters what is the guest experience. And while you learn what is the guest experience, you can quickly close the loop if the experience is not great. And if the experience is good, you can leverage it and educate other locations, right? What pandemics, and I will finish with one thing. I believe that there's two ways to approach pandemic. One, what we call to survive. You know, take your head down and let's go through it and let's see how things go. And another approach was what we call survive with integrity. Let's take this pandemic as the biggest opportunity to build technology infrastructure that we're never going to have the time. Startup companies, they don't have the time, never calmly to complete those things. But you want to run, you want to grow, there is an opportunity. So for me, COVID was the best time to learn about what those generation needs and to speed and complete creation of technology platform that allow me to measure experience and to find assets cheaper and faster.
I think what you described of pressing the reset button, you know, and these paradigm shifts is truly a phenomenal opportunity. Truth of the matter is that there are few companies that were as well capitalized as you guys to be able to achieve that. Also, it's a great experience that you were able to reassess the business and make those adaptations, but that there's still, you know, the sector is still hurting, so that the reality is still existing in the region. Moving on to you, Andres, you have the large branded operators throughout the world. You know, they have a certain scale and an ability whereby they have the standard operating procedures that during a pandemic, you know, they can develop their guidebooks, you know, the new activities that need to be implemented at the property level. And they have phenomenal capacity to roll that out in a cost-efficient way to all of their platform hotels and, you know, all of their clients. So scale matters, you know, in a pandemic that became extremely obvious. You are a company who focuses, you know, primarily on the small and medium-sized enterprise. You know, you mentioned 7,000 rooms, 200 hotels, which puts you at an average of, you know, 35, 40 rooms per property. And that has a different reality, you know, from a sophistication point of view to ability to implement these protocols. However, maintaining guest safe, employee safe, community safe continues to be a priority. How did you react during the pandemic? How were you able to leverage this experience and push those SOPs down to your franchisees?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is this has always been a challenge because, you know, we have 250 hotels in which there is, I mean, different people serving on the front desk, on the cleaning job and so on. And these people used to change a lot. So you have a high amount of people that is new in every single day. So we have to train them again in how to, I mean, kind of follow these standard operating procedures. So the reality is this has been a challenge before, as I was saying, because we have to teach the hotels how to clean the rooms, what the specific time of day we have to do the check-in or the check-out, how to mark in our property management software the no-show or cancellation. So we have an entire kind of onboarding kind of path in which we tell them how, to do every single of these standard operating procedures. And then we have a team in place in each one of the locations that we serve, which they have a job called the quality representative assurance. So these people go to each one of the hotels, they review each one of the rooms, and they are the one who have the channel of communication with the people at the front. So there have always been a challenge, but with the pandemic, the challenge was even higher because now we have to really take care of the health of our guests, which is pretty important for us, as well as the people in the staff of the hotel. So the reality is we have a lot of challenges of communication with the hotel owners and with the hotel staff, but it's kind of centralized in our property management software. So we develop a property management software which the hotel have all the information that they need, not just to follow some specific procedures, but to understand the lead indicators, whether they are doing the things well or not. For example, with all the cleanliness, we have the capacity to tell exactly in which number of which room there is something wrong on terms of the quality, because at the end of the day, hospitality is one of those kind of, I would say, small industries in which people leave a lot of reviews in each one of the check-ins that they do. So it gives us a lot of clues on what are the things that we have to do. So the next step is realizing that there is thousands of reviews and we need to convert all those information into really actionables that we can do right there. So have been a challenge, but right now we're pretty safe that the hotel owners, the people on the staff and the guests are being taken care by the standard operating procedure that we create for them.
So in essence, that small and medium-sized enterprise that was independent hotel before they joined you, they didn't have the analytic capacity to sort through the reviews, the commentary, and to improve their operation. But through your platform, there is a bit more of consistency and focus in the key areas that need to be addressed and improved. Fantastic. This aspect of biosecurity protocols is something that IDB took at heart from early on in the pandemic. We actually did a lot of work working with one of the premier universities in Spain to develop a set of criteria on how to implement biosecurity protocols in the tourism sector. It's not any sort of certification by IDB, but talked about some of the methodology of elements that should be considered when implementing. We're going to be adding a link to the chat box right now, which has the results of that study and the report. It's free of charge. Feel free to use it at your discretion. Moving on to you, Cristián. I just came back from Costa Rica a couple of days ago. Felt safe, felt that the protocols were working well in the country. You could definitely see that the country is turning a corner. But I was particularly impressed by the fact that when I landed, I received a notification from the Ministry of Health about security tracing, which was an added element that I hadn't seen in other places. And Costa Rica, when you compare it to other nations, it has always been at the forefront on the technology and even on the tourism side. Can you comment a little bit about these initiatives by the Ministry of Health and what has been the coordination between Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Health to promote tourism and keep people safe?
Yeah, of course. Well, first of all, thank you for coming to Costa Rica, Rogerio. It was a pleasure to have you here. I'd say Costa Rica obviously got hit very hard by this pandemic, but we were also very well positioned to react to it. And I think that there's a couple of reasons behind that. Daniel Salas, who's the current Minister of Health, I think did a fantastic job in understanding the pandemic, understanding what needed to be done. And then Costa Rica has had decades and decades of a very robust health system that has a lot of very good control on how the population is and where they're at. And so tracing was really done well. The other thing is on the Ministry of Tourism side, we are also very lucky to have Minister Segura and his knowledge of the industry from an inside out perspective, which really allowed both of them to work together and especially to trust each other. I think that the balance between the Minister of Health and the Minister of Tourism was really important in negotiating how to open and how not to open, and where and where not. And I think that the combination of having a lot of data from the Ministry of Health and a very robust top to bottom structure in the industry in Costa Rica allowed for a very good process. So, I think I'm glad that your experience was really good coming into the country. And as a citizen passing the pandemic in Costa Rica, I also felt very safe. I'd have to say, I think at some point we all, felt a little bit scared, but at the end of the day, I think the way the government reacted, the way the Ministry of Tourism also reacted, and the way, and especially the maturity with which the sector reacted when they had to, was really important. So I think, from that perspective, the country was very well positioned. The other factor that we had in our social security system is that we have Mr. Roman Macaya as president of the social security system, who's also a very knowledgeable businessman and a person in the industry, in the health industry, has been for many, many years. So I think that trifecta, plus the priority that was put into it, really gave us a solid platform and plan to act on.
Fantastic. Thank you for the feedback. And just like you said, I receiving that notification upon landing gave me a perception of security that was very comforting, and it was available on the cell phone as soon as the wheels touched the floor. Andres, moving back to you, there continues to be phenomenal consolidation in the hospitality sector. We all know in Latin America, independent hotels, they make up about 70% of the inventory. And your business model, focus strictly on that small and medium-sized enterprise. Now, we know that at that level, the sophistication of some of these players are reduced when you're compared to the larger box hotels. And something as basic as online presence, some of these 20, 30 room hotels, they depend on whatever marketing efforts the online travel agencies, the OTA, does. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the tools, some of the systems that you're implementing to these independent hotels on the onboarding system? How are you making them more competitive? What are they being able to leverage by being on your platform?
Sure, Rogerio. I mean, the reality is when we first get to a new hotel and we sign a contract, what we learn is, most of those hotels, they don't have a direct distribution channel. So even though, the unique probably is the walk-ins that they receive, which account for a big chunk of the pie. But the reality is some of them didn't even have a website or a Facebook account or an Instagram account. And even though they can have some of them, they would probably, create 1% of the entire amount of reservations. So they don't have professionalism on marketing or technology. They didn't even have online presence on the online travel agencies. So some of them could have a Booking.com account or an Expedia account, but you will be surprised that most of them didn't even have one of those accounts. And if they have them, probably is not fine-tuned in a way a professional will do to get more reservation. They didn't even claim the online reputation data. So they probably didn't claim the TripAdvisor, even though it's online, but they didn't know how to handle or the Google card in which they can see the reviews. So what we first do when we onboard a new hotel is we claim all the information that is available online. So we claim the OTA Booking.com account, Expedia account, and then we boost all the online travel agencies by creating accounts on Best Day, Hotel Beds, Price Travel, and all the other relevant OTAs across the region. We claim all the online reputation data, so the TripAdvisor, the Google card. We fine tune each one of them. We took professional photos of the hotel in a way they can have more online presence, and we take care of the online reputation of the hotel. So we talk with the hotel. We say, hey, these are the 5 things that we have to change in order to move from, let's say, 3 stars to 4.5 star, and this will give us a boost on the online reputation. So one of the things that we do is we take leverage of what already exists of the hotel. But the new and the most important part of the hotel is the amount of reservation that we are bringing to the table. So we have not just our website, but we also have like almost 30 people on the corporate sales accounts. They are calling companies every single day to manage their hospitality budget with us. And also we have our app, which is our second most important channel across all the channels that we have now. So the most important thing for a hotel owner is, are these Ayenda people not just franchise me and changing my branding, but also they are bringing new reservation to the table? And the answer is yes. I mean, we account for about 40% of the new pie chart that we are going to create with the hotel owners on the amount of reservation that we bring to the table. So I think the hotel feel a boost, not only on the amount of demand that we are boosting on the online travel actual presence, plus the new reservation, but we also give them a lot of technology which will make them easier to run the day-to-day operation. So they usually didn't have a channel manager, which is this piece of technology. We connect the availability and the prices with a third party like Booking and Expedia and so on. So we bring that channel manager, we bring a property management software, even a hotel app in which the hotel owner can all day know what are the occupancy rate of the hotel and another stuff that can also be done on the property management software. So we're trying to find what pieces of technology serves our guests better that we can give to our hotel owners.
I love it. I think this concept of providing a voice to the little guy, democratizing the processing, consolidated, highly competitive sector is something very, very excited that we applaud. So congratulations. And Rafi, in your case, you're a little bit different. You are an owner operator, and also your hotels, they tend to be more amenitized. You have very activated lobbies with entertainment, with activity. Can you touch upon any particular differences in your onboarding process for these new hotels? And also, you touched upon at the beginning, the concept of working from home is quickly migrating to working from anywhere, right? What does that mean for Selina? What are some of the programs that you are trying to implement to take advantage of that? And are you already seeing evidence that this work from anywhere is here to stay and might even require you to adapt some elements of your properties to be able to embrace larger volumes of this new type of demand profile? I know it's a handful, but hopefully you remember it all.
Yeah. So 2 questions about onboarding and second about the new program. So let's start with onboarding. On the onboarding side, again, it's very important to say 100% Selina coming to a new town or coming to a new country, to a new mountain village, surf beach. Again, our distribution is just 30% of the obvious traditional cities. 70% of Selina is going to where the domestic market wants us to be. As I said before, the local people, in Colombia, the local Colombians, or in Chile, the local Chilean, they tell us where to go. They design our roadmap. It means that our onboarding, it's 100% made by them. Onboarding for Selina it's all about who are the right partners, who are the right local content providers that can speed the process of us become a destination or a place to be for the local community. Onboarding for us, it's all about technology. And onboarding without technology can take 3 months. Onboarding with technology can take 2 weeks. It's all about how you build your company to a point of plug and play. And each of us here want to scale a business, right? Like any other, you build a product, you test it, you build the unit economics, and you want to scale. At the moment of scaling, then after you build a successful one product that is profitable, the next challenge is how to build a platform that will allow you to scale. Platform that allow you to onboard quickly and to scale. Platform is technology. You can never mind if your business it's a beer company or it's a hotel company or it's anything you want to do today. Without building a technology platform, you will not be able to scale. That's what we basically build. Again, I think it's quite close to Ayenda. Ayenda have all those technology, and they can come to a mom and pop hotel and plug their technology into this mom and pop, and they're doing incredible job in doing that. That's what we're doing on scale, and trying to, again, to reduce the onboarding time as much as we can. That in terms of onboarding. So the onboarding is technology combined with a local community that tell us what is the physical experience, amenities that the local need. So it cannot be just technology, it has to be the combination of both. That's one. In terms of the programs and the products that we build for this post-remote work digital nomads, Selina introduced a global product called the Passport. So the Nomad Passport allow people to have access to 100 Selinas in 20 different countries. They're paying between $500 a month to $3,000 a month. Either they're buying into a dorm beds and co-work, or to a suite, or anything in between. And basically, we call them the global citizens. There is hundreds of millions of global citizens. People believe that it's a small niche. It's not a small niche, it's a huge niche. So the global citizens are those that they're not interested in renting a house and have a lease liability for over a year. Global citizens are the luckiest people in the world, that they just choose to have no liability. They're going to travel, they're going to go with the flow, they're going to see where the opportunities are, and they're happy to spend 5 to 10 years traveling, or living, traveling, whatever. So we build a product for them, which is a full flexible accommodation co-work global product. From New York to Ecuador, there is a beautiful town on the Amazonas called Tena. Anything in between, that's what we're doing.
Just to focus a little bit more on the physical product, we believe that in a post-COVID world, there's going to be a reassessment of all of the public spaces in a hotel, and some of those areas may be repurposed. From the perspective that the lobby is no longer a lobby where you just check in people, right? The lobby is going to be a space where now I might need to have a Zoom meeting with a client. I might need to engage with a local on a one-to-one meeting. I might do an activity that is beyond just the check-in process. So the same thing you think about your entertainment areas, that there are going to be more uses than the original that was conceived. So there's going to be a slight evolution, because on this work from anywhere perspective, I might be going to one of these locations with a companion, with a partner, and now you need 2 desks for people to be working on, as opposed to only one. Something as specific as broadband, have you already seen a need to expand the broadband capacity at your existing hotels? And are there any other modifications to the physical footprint that you're having to undertake because of this work from anywhere demand?
So first of all, we had co-working in every Selina before. I think that we are now close to doubling the size. So the biggest change is to expand the co-working space in our hotels. That leads to a longer stay. And in hospitality, if you attract the same amount of people, but instead of 3 days average stay, they're staying 6 days or 7 days average stay, you literally need to attract half of them, and you're getting the same occupancy. And by increasing the length of stay, you're reducing CAC dramatically. It's a cost of acquisition. So basically, every hospitality company in the world, they want to increase length of stay, and they want to reduce CAC, which can represent 20% of your expenses sometimes. And the best way to do it is to find ways to get people, more and more looking at your space as a living versus just visiting. So from library, what the size of the library, how many books you have in the library, what kind of books, your cinema room, it takes 2 seconds to connect to a Netflix or to watch Nadal Federer, or it's going to take you an hour, and you're going to your common kitchen, it's a really like a hostelry common kitchen, or it's an upgraded MasterChef common kitchen that will allow people really to imagine a living over 2 or 3 months in this common kitchen. Co-work, there is a real ability to make a phone call or a Zoom call in a professional way, or it's just a desk. I think that what Corona teaches that people really want to live. And for that, You need the good pots in the common kitchen. You need great books. You need a proper co-work. You can't play halfway. So amenities need to be better, and anything that leads to an increased length of stay need to be bigger.
Good point. Very good point. Cristián, moving on to you. You know, something that is fascinating about Into is that you're trying to evolve this concept of conservation as purely a philanthropic initiative to making it a bankable concept. You know, can you tell us a little bit more about the app that you're developing and how you plan to use it?
Yes, of course. So like you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, conservation is at our core. And through conservation, we believe that we can generate an engagement with nature and ourselves through nature. And in order to do that, when we look at how conservation is really executed successfully, it always has two components. How do I protect and preserve nature? And how do I protect and preserve the local communities, and particularly the livelihoods of those communities? So in essence, for conservation to really work, you need to be able to allow both of those components to be well-fed, well-nourished, and healthy, right? So what we believe we're accomplishing with this app is that we really think that through technology, we can generate a platform where all of these converge. So we're basically just generating a communications channel where we can help educate people. People can educate backwards. It's basically a regenerative platform of a sort where we're involving and informing about conservation activities that are being done, conservation organizations that are doing it, the local communities, and for helping establish fair trade, helping establish a connection where the permanent residents, but also the tourist or the shorter term residents can interact and take advantage of that knowledge, and especially interact and exchange their culture, their heritage, a lot of what's coming in with them, and basically having a very robust platform to do that. So what we're seeing in the app is that we can really help bring technology to facilitate a biointelligent relationship between all of the parties. And in that particular sense, what we're aiming to do is really generate an online live connection between all the parties, where you can exchange experiences, invite to experiences, but then also establish a long-term relationship where if I'm a client of a particular location or I'm visiting a particular town and I'm getting to interact with these people, I can establish an engagement that I can take back home with me. And that can turn around and become a form of donations for conservation, acquisitions through the marketplace in the app, donations to a specific institution or organization for educational purposes, etc., or then any other type of formative relationship where I might have an organization back home that I want to connect with a local organization in a specific location. So basically what we're trying to do is really create a platform to connect and really exchange experiences for the long run in favor of the local communities and conservation itself via nature, obviously. So, you know, in general terms, I think that describes what our platform achieves.
Something that is intriguing to us is the ability to measure the carbon footprint. You know, because if you're going to Costa Rica from Paris, and you're taking an Uber ride to the airport and then flying into Costa Rica, there's a footprint that you generate. And if you're coming from the US, it's going to be different. And there's an affectation to the environment by that. So being able to create the link, the consciousness link of the customer, of the incidence of their carbon footprint on a trip is relevant. But then going the next step, being able to get a contribution or a charge from the customer on what they're generating also becomes important. Are there any plans for you guys to try to either measure or have customers pay for their carbon footprint as they engage in vacations in Costa Rica?
Yeah, and a little bit, you know, to go beyond that as well. You know, basically one of our main thesis is that, you know, nature today can be valued or it can be priced. and it can be priced as a force of good, and it can be priced as a reception of the damage that we're creating, right? And so if we are able to price something, then we're going to be able to offset it. So what we have established is a relationship with the local communities and the local organizations that are already measuring nature and pricing that reality of nature, so that we can turn around and at least compensate, or at least allow our clients to compensate, but go beyond that. And that's why, when we consider ourselves a conservation finance company, that's really where we focus. And in that particular sense, in this company specifically, we're looking at a blended finance structure. And in this blended finance structure, it basically means you have for-profit money coming into the mix, but you also have concessionary capital coming into the mix. And that can be via equity or via debt. And concessionary capital means I'm willing to offset my return or to minimize my return, or go to the extent of a philanthropic investment where I'm really looking to achieve a particular type of impact, in this case, in favor of the communities or in favor of nature. And because of that, I'm willing to blend in with somebody that wants to create an ongoing business that will give sustainability to that impact effort. One of the things that really happens in our efforts around the world in terms of trying to impact in conservation is that there's normally a very specific tax incentive or donation program behind a particular initiative at one time. And what we're trying to do is really mix that with ongoing sustainable businesses so that that can continue on forever. So when you ask the question on how we want to offset, yes, we want to offset. We're going to allow that by measuring it, by implementing specific KPIs and certifications and programs that are coming from our strategic alliances, but also because we're creating a business model that will continue in a for-profit model going on forward.
Fantastic. I'm glad to know. We have about 10 minutes left before we open up for Q&A. For those in the audience, as you have specific queries, if you'd be so kind to use the chat box, include them there, and we'll get to some of those towards the end. Andres, moving back to you, you mentioned before that you're able to take these properties that might have very low occupancies in the 10, 20%, and as they get plugged into your system, they have access to distribution, and the occupancy improves. And one of the reasons I think you've been so successful during COVID is by throwing a lifeline to these independent owners, that you are a solution to the problem. And certainly we're not out of the woods. We're still seeing only gradual improvement in demand figures, but it's a move towards the right direction. So question for you is, right now there's a focus on solvency, making sure that these businesses remain as going concerns. But as you see the business continue to pick up in the next 12 to 24 months, are there any specific initiatives from a technology perspective that you could implement that maybe now is not the time because there's a lack of funds, but in the near future, you could get them plugged into some of these hotels?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the questions that we ask ourselves very often is how our hotel is going, how an Ayenda hotel into a certain neighborhood is going to be 10x the hotel in front of us. It's a question that we repeat to ourselves very often because, the hotel in front of us is another independent hotel, pretty similar to our hotel, but now they have a brand called Ayenda. But it's still a lot, we're lacking a lot of, technology and physical improvements and so on to be 10x the hotel in front of us. So one of the biggest challenges that we face is the standardization, because when we get a new hotel, they have different internet service provided with a different velocity. They have different mattresses. Some of those hotels are brand new, but our hotel have been in business for around 15 years. There is a lack of standardization when we first get to a hotel. So I think there is still a lot of software to be created. So with data, we want to be able to tell a specific hotel owner when is the right time to change the towels of the hotels or the sheets. There have been a lot of procurement technology to be developed in order to be in charge with everything, and the hotel owner can be, less on the management of the hotel and more on the customer service of the guests. So there is a lot of things to be done right there. And then in another step is everything that has to be with the IoT. So we can have like presence in the rooms. We can help the hotels to save electricity, water. We can have keyless doors. So there is a lot of technology to be built in order to really be the next hotel in front of us. But there is just one another thing that can be done in the next 5 to 10 years. And we believe in the future there's not going to be needed people on the front desk, like front desk managers or their staff in the hotels that we serve, because we're domestic travelers that they just want to be the more affordable room that they can have. So probably we will have to build technology to make that happen in the long run and to help people go to automatic hotels with a fraction of the price, with self check-in and everything. So, it's super early days still.
Fantastic. Looking forward to those days, being checked in by a robot. Rafi, the cruise companies, they are masters at facilitating purchases. You get to a cruise, they put on a wristband, and you end up buying more cocktails than you could have imagined, and you buy everything in the gift shop. So clearly, facilitating a purchase has a direct impact on revenues. You've been at the forefront of RF technology. Can you comment a little bit what you're doing at the property level and any other cool innovations that you have implemented or planning to implement at some of the Selinas?
Yeah. So first of all, the same kind of cruise style to do upsale, the famous wristband that Walt Disney invested $1 billion to create, and today it's become a very simple projects that probably every operator can do. We own our own PMS. So Selina acquired a PMS company in Argentina a few years ago, and we build on top of that our tokens, our currencies, and everything. So when we want to build this, the cashless wristband as a solution, it didn't cost us much, so we build it in-house. We already we complete the development of the product. We're in an implementation stage. I think about probably 20 or 25% of our locations already have it. The good news that 32% incremental revenue of non-accommodation products already achieved. We're watching those dashboards, the live dashboard on a daily basis, and watching in a specific location how 50 people with wristband versus people without wristband, how they're reacting to the technology. I think so probably by the end of Q1 next year, 100% of Selinas will be full cashless. This wristband that you see in my hand, you see this here, there is a small chip. That chip is basically recognize you when you walk in, and you will be able, like in Apple Pay, you're gonna charge with a few $100s and you're gonna consume. That's number one. Number two, every hotel, again, Selina, at the end of next year, we have close to 27,000 beds. That means that in 2022, just those existing beds, the 40% that we will not be able to occupy represent over $150 or $200 million. It's a big inventory that you can't sell. Now we ask ourselves how we can leverage those huge amount of money that you can't sell into a OPEX reduction. We ask ourselves, what is the biggest expense for Selina? So obviously on top of CAC and labor, it's content and programming. Selina, it's a content, programming, and experience-driven brand. And basically we build a token, and by next year, content providers, yoga teacher, meditations, DJs, whoever, they will be able to, in a very automatic, seamless way, to exchange their content with tokens and to be able to use those tokens to consume whatever they want in the world. Through that, we're expecting to reduce 75% of the content and programming cost, basically by a technology global barter that exchange content with rooms that you can't sell anyway.
Yeah, I think this idea of how to take advantage of that inventory that is getting lost, used up, and monetize it in these barter or exchange programs is such a genius idea. Congrats. You developed also a tool that measures the level of happiness of guests. Now you have your happiness index. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that and how you're monetizing, how you're leveraging that concept?
So again, for us, there is 3 communities that need to be happy. Your guest, which is your hotel guest, what we call the local community that visit your properties, and basically the most important, and your employees. So 3 communities that need to be happy. We call it the destination. It's a guest destination index, connectors destination index, and our visitors. Those 3 communities we're measuring on a daily basis, and their satisfactions, happiness through different tools, from mystery shoppers to corporate shoppers to NPS surveys to traditional reviews, through many ways. And one of the most important questions we're asking 65% of our guests that they leaving the space is, did you make a new friend? And today, over 50% make a new friend. In a world that you have close to 40% loneliness, if you make a new friend, it means a lot. It means it's a huge social impact on an individual, right? So we are, again, data is everything. You can't improve your business without data. And in order to get data, you need to build the tools that will allow you to measure. And in order to do that, you need a good BI people that can build you the tools. So it's not an easy one, but it's today it's become easier and easier, and things that used to be very complicated, today it's quite obvious.
Fantastic. I think there's connectivity at a deeper level has become even more important in a COVID environment and a post-COVID environment. I think that there's that longing for authentic experiences, which are describing, and this element of raw nature, raw experience rings extremely true in Costa Rica. The type of experience you get there is one of a kind. So, Cristián, going back to you, and you mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but I'd like you to go into a little bit more depth. Can you comment about some of the alliances that you're developing to enhance the guest experience, and also how does that trickle down to the value chain, to the local SMEs where your properties are going to be established? How are you trying to leverage those connections?
Yes, of course. So I think that what I mentioned previously was very focused on the local ecosystem, right? And the interaction between the different players at a local level. We believe that through creating the right alliances, we can connect this platform in a way that allows those local players or that local ecosystem to really become globally connected. So we are currently talking to some top tier universities that have a lot of experience in particular areas of interest of these communities and the livelihood of these communities. We're also creating connections with organizations or non-for-profits that, once we identify a problem, can come up or can bring an established solution to the table. So at the end of the day, what we believe is that when we really say that we are a platform, we really believe that we can be a platform for the better, in the sense that we can take advantage and leverage our relationships as well in favor of what's going on locally. And then why did I start my answer, talking about the local community? Because by strengthening the local community, by strengthening the individuals, you will have a much better experience for your clients. At the end of the day, you'll have better prepared, better informed people in the community, scientifically speaking, from a cultural perspective, from a historic perspective. They'll know and be able to prepare themselves better. There's a lot of education programs as well that will enable this. And basically, once you go to any destination, and Rafi mentioned this earlier, and it's part of what they do using their technology, there's already a lot of history there. There's already a lot of there's thousands of years underneath a rock or behind a tree that you should know of. And that's part of what really enriches that experience for the user. But there's normally no hay un interlocutor, right? There's really no connection between the past, the present, and the future. And we believe that that can be created by establishing these long-term relationships and alliances in different forms. Costa Rica also, now that you mention it, has an advantage, and it's that the government and the private sector have been fully invested into tourism for 30, 40 years now. So it's a country where, you have duplicated the rainforest coverage in the last 30 years. It's a champion of the earth. It's really a country where every single person and most of the organizations and institutions are already aligned in this particular sense. So for us, it was relatively easy to see many different options out there to help locally that we just believe the platform can really facilitate. You're on mute, Rogerio.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes left, and we have a fantastic question that I would like to ask each of you here. Starting with you, Andres, if there is one technological feature that you would like to see scaled out or possibly accelerated that can help us either get out of this pandemic, embrace recovery at a faster pace, or even thinking about the guest experience, something that could be a game changer. Is there anything that you see in the horizon in the next 24 to 36 months that is quite unique? So we'll go with you, then Cristián, and close with Rafi in 1 minute.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I won't ask for too much because 50% of our customers are walk-ins. It's a huge. So probably an experienced traveler, they already have Marriott, Airbnb, Booking.com in their phone. When one of our walk-in transform in our app is the first app that they ever have in their lives in the travel space. So it's huge for us. So for us, having more internet penetration, lower cost of data plans, and better smartphones in the next 12 to 2 years would be enough for now.
Fantastic. I'll let my colleague, Guillermo Mulville, he is the head of our technology platform. I'll give him a hint that that's what's needed. Thank you. Cristián.
Well, I think, a biointelligent disruption would be very interesting. We have a program in Costa Rica led by Guanacaste Dry Forest Conservation Fund, where they're inventorying the DNA of the different species in the protected area that they manage. And it's been amazing just to understand what that does. And to give you a very quick example, by understanding what's happening at a microcellular level and differentiating all of that, you're also able to price that. And by pricing that, you're able to mitigate damage, or you're able to create a healthier location. And I think that from our perspective, that's really what's required in order to have a much more robust ecosystem going forward, and especially given all of the climate action that is required for net zero over the next couple of years. I think biointelligence is a very disruptive technology that would benefit us all a lot.
Perfect. Interesting. Rafi, let's close with you.
Yeah, I think it's all about packaging. It's all about packaging and flexibility. I think that the new generations that again represent close to half of the consumptions and probably represent most of the crowd here, they need the simple ability to package their life somehow in a very flexible way to allow them to change plans without penalties. So for me, any kind of innovation that will simplify the ability to create a life package that can include a whole ecosystem of work, play, stay, with the ability to be flexible, in my opinion, will lead the shift in the movement in hospitality.
Oh, fantastic. Look, everyone, in closing, I would say that certainly the pandemic has had a deep impact in our sector. We had never seen something of this kind before, but there are encouraging news. We are turning a corner month after month. Demand is picking up. The sector is starting to recover, vaccinations in Latin America, although they were slow at the beginning, the pace is starting to improve. And all of that is comforting, showing that we are headed to the right direction, and there's going to be a stronger pickup in the second half of the year. Technology is certainly an enhancer. We have here examples of 3 companies that are able to successfully leverage that in order to create a competitive advantage, to have an edge, and ultimately have a privileged position in the marketplace. I wanted to thank our 3 panelists, Cristián, Andres, and Rafi. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Continue staying safe and keep pushing forward. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
For the invite, Rogerio.
Thank you.
Thank you.